Hi everybody, it's Denise from I Inhale Books, and I know that I haven't posted a video in a long time, a year or 2 years, I'm not even sure. I kind of stopped posting because I was kind of not reading very much, so I thought that, I didn't have much to talk about. But I decided to do this video because it is the end of a decade. Tomorrow will be 2020. It is December 31st, 2019, and I thought I would do a decade book top 10. So it's the top 10 books of the decade for me. I'm going to give you a little overview of what I know I've read this year, not all the names of the books, but just the amount of books, plus my top 10 books of the decade and my top 5 series of the decade. Now, a lot of my favorite books came from series, so my top 10 books don't have any of those books in it because they're part of the series top 5. So, let's just jump right in and get started. Throughout the years, I've accumulated a lot of books, but I've also kept a track of how many books I've read and what those books were on Goodreads and on Facebook. I started doing this in 2014, and so I don't have any real documentation of what I read from 2010 to 2013. I just have, what I remember reading. So, estimatingly, I'm going to go with, based on what I've read this from 2014 to 2019, I'm going to estimate I read about 30, I would say 30 to 40 books between 2010 and 2013. That's just my assumption. In 2014, I read 20 books, and my goal on Goodreads was 20. And that's how many books I read. In 2015, I read 59 books, and my goal was 100, and I did not meet that. In 2016, I read 12 books, and my goal was 15. In 2017, I only read 1 book the entire year. That was a really difficult year for me, and I like to look back on my year in the reading books. That was totally not a sentence. I like to look back and see how many books I read each year, and it kind of shows like maybe how I felt that year. In 2018, I read 5 books, and my goal was 52. And this year, I read 12 books, and I met my goal of 12. So technically, this is the first year I've met my Goodreads goal since 2014. I'm pretty proud of it. Anyway, so that's the documentation that I have of all the books that I've read this year. And if we just turn the page to my list here, the top 10 books that I've read this year are now. The top 10 books that I've read of the decade. All of these are contemporaries. Every single one of them. I'm a big contemporary fan. So, they're all contemporaries. The number 10 book is This Is What Happy Looks Like by Jennifer E. Smith. Now, this book was one of my favorites by her. I own all of her books. And this one, of the ones I've read, I think I'm lacking 1 book that I haven't read by her. And besides her old ones, I haven't read any of her old ones. But This Is What Happy Looks Like was my favorite book by her. I can't specifically remember. I think it's about a girl who lives in a small town. And this boy, she's been emailing back and forth, I think. And they're really good friends. Like, they like each other. And then when all this is happening, a celebrity comes to her town to film a movie. And it's just, her relationship with this person also blossoms. So it's kind of just about that, and it's a really good book. And I read it a few years ago, so I don't remember exactly everything that happened, but that's pretty much the gist of it. The number 9 book is Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. Now, I fought with myself a lot because I was like, I love Fangirl, but I love Eleanor and Park, but I love Fangirl. And I was like, which one do I love the most? Eleanor and Park just touched me. The relationship between these 2 characters was amazing, and I loved it so much. And it's one of my favorite Rainbow Rowell books, and I highly recommend it to anybody. It's a great book. My number 8 book is Just Listen by Sarah Dessen. Now, I have 2 all-time favorite books, and they fought for these 2 positions. They're right in a row, 7 and 8. So we're on 8 right now, and 7 is another Sarah Dessen book. And number 8 was, like I said, Just Listen is a great book. It's one of my favorite Sarah Dessen books. It is so good. I highly recommend it, even if I can't give you like my opinion on it or a description of it. I know that I loved it. It was an amazing book. I highly recommend it. Number 7 is This Lullaby by Sarah Dessen. Again, great book. This one's about a girl who falls in love with a rock star, and she doesn't want to fall in love with a rock star, and it's just great. You need to go ahead and read that one too. Number 6 is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. Let me tell you, this book blew my mind, okay? You guys might think, why? Everything that happened in it you saw coming. No, I didn't. You might have. I didn't. I did not see anything coming that happened in this book. I highly, highly recommend this book because it will just flabbergast you. Like, that's the only word I can use. It will flabbergast you. It is a great book. My number 5 is All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. This book will make you laugh, will make you cry, will make you really, really mad and really, really sad, but it is worth it. It is a great book. It is an amazing book. It's just so heartwarming, and it just kind of opens your eyes to things, and it's great. Again, highly recommend. My number 4 book is called Taking Chances by Molly McAdams. Now, for me, as far as I know, Molly McAdams is a very underrated author. I haven't heard her about her on Goodreads at all, or not Goodreads, but BookTube at all. And she's just an amazing author, and I really recommend her to everybody that I talk to. She's a great author. If you like any of these that I've read off, you will love her. This book is great. It's amazing. I don't know exactly, I can't give you a description of it off the top of my head, but like, I read it so many years ago and I still remember it to this day. It is a great, amazing book. My number 3 book, Safe Haven by Nicholas Sparks. Now, my entire life, I've had one not my entire life, but since I've read Nicholas Sparks, I've had one favorite Nicholas Sparks book. You ask me, what's your favorite Nicholas Sparks book? I'll say it, okay? It's my number 2 pick. You'll get to hear it in a minute. This one came so close to beating that. It came so close. I read it at the end of 2018, and it came so close to beating my most favorite Nicholas Sparks book, which I read in this decade. In case you didn't know, that's what this list is for. But anyway, so Safe Haven is such a great story, and I can give you a great description because I read it more recently. It is about a girl who's running away from her abusive ex, and it's heartwarming, and it's tragic. It's not like super tragic, but it's tragic to hear the story that she's telling about herself and what happens with her and everything. It's just a great book. Highly recommend. My number 2 pick is my number 1 pick of Nicholas Sparks, which is A Walk to Remember. And it is still my favorite book. Safe Haven was so close to beating it, and I'm going to finish his books, reading all of his books this year. Another book might beat it. I don't know. But A Walk to Remember has been my favorite for so long, and it's a great book and a great movie too. So if you don't know what that one's about, then go and read it and watch it right now. My number 1 pick is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. There are a few reasons why this is my number 1 pick. 1, it was my most rated book of the decade. It was. Of all of these, it's 5 out of 5 stars, okay? I mean, that tells me a lot. That tells me I love this book. I remember this book very vividly. I do. I know exactly what this book is about. And back when I read this at the beginning of 2013. I got it for Christmas in 2012, I'm pretty sure. Or I might have gotten it Christmas 2013 and read it in 2014. But I hadn't picked up a book, I don't think, in months. Didn't really read much at the time. Had books on my shelves, maybe like 30. It was just a rough time. I didn't read much. I picked up this book because I got it for Christmas because I really wanted it. And I read it. January. It was January. I read it. Loved it. Fell in love with it. And you know what? After I read that book, I started buying books. And I started reading books. So much. And that was not the start of my love of books. My love of books has happened when I was 13. But it was my restart for my love of books because I kind of strayed away from it. And this book brought me back to it. And I'll always remember that. And that's why it's my number 1 pick. Absolutely love these books. Some honorable mentions. Burned and Smoke by Ellen Hopkins. Great books. Emmy and Oliver. I don't know who the author is right now, but the great books. Anything by Jennifer E. Smith. Amazing. Anything by Molly McAdams, Nicholas Sparks, Sarah Dessen. All amazing authors. Definitely a must read. all of their books, okay? Also, some Huntley Fitzpatrick, she's great. And, you know, so many more that I can't even think of off the top of my head right now. We're going to do the top series of the decade. Okay, we're going to start with my number 5. My number 5 is Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Okay, so that was, if you asked me 5 years ago, that would have been my number 1 pick. But it's my number, not 5 years ago, but like 3 years ago. It's my number 5 because I love it. It's still there, but it's not my absolute favorite. The Summer Series, my number 4 pick, The Summer Series by Jenny Han. It's actually called The Summer I Turned Pretty series, but that was too long to write, so it's The Summer Series. Absolutely love that series. Great contemporary series. I'm currently in the process of reading the To All the Boys I Loved Before series, so I might like it more. I don't know, but it was a great series. My number 3 pick, The Boy series by Meg Cabot. I actually don't know if that's actually the name of the series, but if you just look up Meg Cabot, The Boy Next Door, pretty sure that's the first one. The rest of them, all of them, great books. Highly recommend. The Mortal Instrument series is my number 2 by Cassandra Clare. I mean, 6 books. I'm gonna see if I can do it. City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass, City of Fallen Angels, City of Lost Souls, and City of Heavenly Fire. Pick them all up, read them, love them. My number 1 pick is actually, I read this whole entire series. It's a 5-book series. I don't know if they're done with it. I don't think they are. And I read all of them this year. I actually read the first book when it first came out a few years back. But I kind of forgot about the series. I loved the first book and couldn't wait for the next one, but I lost track of when it came out. And then another one came out, and then another one came out, and I got distracted. So I picked them all up at the library and read them. It's called the Field Party series by Abby Glines. If you like young adult, contemporary, lovey-dovey, cheesy romance novels for young adult, like teens, it's a great read. Great. I highly recommend it. My all-time favorite series of the decade. It is the greatest lovey, cheesy book series I've ever read. I love it. An honorable mention, just one honorable mention. The Sign of Seven trilogy by Nora Roberts. Also, highly recommend. I'm not sure if I read this in this decade. Pretty sure I read it before the decade. Pretty sure I read it in 2009. But it's still a great series, and I highly recommend it. But I think that's all for me. I did do an estimated guess of how many books I read in the decade, and I estimated about 200, and that's kind of low, and I wish I would have read more. And I plan on trying to read more, but I also plan on not pushing myself to read a lot, because I think that my problem last decade was that I pushed myself too much, and it became a chore to read instead of something that I enjoyed. So 200 books, 700 books, 10,000 books, I read, and that's what I love to do. Who cares how many books you read? Who cares what you read? It's up to you. Like, if you want to read 1 book, go for it. If you want to read 10 books, 20 books, 30 books, like, set yourself a goal, but don't set some astronomical goal that you don't even know if you can complete, and then you get stressed out because you don't get close to it. Set a goal you know you can do. 10 books, 15 books. If you overcome that goal, that's great. If you read 100 books and you never thought you would, that's great. But don't make your goal 100 and stress yourself out to get to that point. Get to 100 without even thinking about it. But anyway, that's all for tonight, guys. I don't know when I'll post my next video. I'm hoping I can do some wrap-up videos for you if I read a few books. But again, I don't want to push myself, so you might not hear from me again for a while. But I just really wanted to share my decade top 10. So I hope you guys have a great night, and don't forget to sniff a book. Bye, guys.